Last week, we saw 10 tight ends put together double-digit fantasy performances. That's the first time that's happened since week 9. And while we got a few duds from our studs, we could definitely see a nice bounce back this week. Hit that like button if you want your tight ends to score you more than 10 fantasy points. Yo, what is going on, Headliner Nation? If you're still setting your lineup right now, it means you're still in the running for a fantasy championship, and hopefully your roster is all set at the tight end position and you're not stressing over it. But if for some reason you're not 100% sure what to do, hopefully my start and sit video where I cover every matchup for the tight ends this week will help you figure out who's the best one to have in your lineup. But before I jump into the action, I just want to let everybody know that Underdog is giving you the opportunity to redeem yourself if your fantasy season just didn't go the way that you would like, because they're going to be putting together some NFL playoff best ball leagues, an absolute opportune time for you to jump right back into it and make sure you finish off the 2023 season with an absolute banger. And if you're interested in getting in on the action, but maybe you're not signed up at Underdog as of yet, you need to do so now using our code word. When you create a new account and make a first-time deposit over on Underdog, make sure you add in code word headliners when you complete both of those steps, because Underdog is going to match your deposit up to $100. And before the playoffs get here, they're also going to give you a special pick'em to play that's almost guaranteed to hit. So make sure you get ready to go so we can put together a second run at a fantasy championship. And this one may even be a little bit more special. If for some reason you missed our quarterback start and sit video, this video is going to look a lot different than the other start and sit videos that we have done so far this year. Behind the scenes, we're playing around with a few ideas to expand your viewing experience for the 2024 season. So we figured what we would do here at the end of 2023 is do a little bit of a dry run with some of the changes that we're looking at doing. Now, this isn't completely set in stone, just a couple of changes that we're going through, and as we go through the off season, we're going to fine tune them and we're going to make 2024 videos better than anything you've ever experienced on this channel or any other channel to go with it. This week, the New Orleans Saints and the Los Angeles Rams will kick us off on Thursday Night Football. Then we'll have 2 games on Saturday, an entire slew of games on Christmas Eve on Sunday, and then 3 more games on Christmas Day. But we know that it can be hard pressed to find guys that you truly rely on in your fantasy roster every week at the tight end position. But with that being said, we also know that there are several guys that we're going to be playing no matter what. But then we add in a few guys with it that, because of the matchup or the current streak they're on, they also need to find their way into our lineup. So here is my list of absolute must starts this week. These are the guys at the tight end position that you're going to have in your lineup no matter what. And if for some reason you have multiple of these guys, they also could warrant flex considerations to go along with it. David Njoku has been the tight end 2 in fantasy scoring each of the last 2 weeks. And since their bye in week 5, he has been a top 12 tight end every week but 2 of those. And the move to Joe Flacco has only elevated not only his upside, but his floor to go with it. And he may be one of the best bets at the tight end position right now. He has jumped all the way up to tight end 5 on the season. And not only that, but this week he gets a matchup with the Houston Texans, who have allowed the 6th most fantasy points to the tight end position this season. I'm feeling really confident that we're going to see another big day from David Njoku, and he absolutely is going to be in your lineup because of that. For the first time this season, TJ Hawkinson's going to get the opportunity to go up against his replacement in Detroit, Sam Laporta. And right now, Detroit is feeling really good about making that trade of TJ Hawkinson and then adding Sam Laporta in his place. Both of these tight ends from a fantasy perspective have been excellent this season. And while TJ Hawkinson has amassed more volume in terms of catches and receiving yards, Sam Laporta has scored more touchdowns and offered way more big play potential. And as of right now, Sam Laporta in half PPR leagues is barely edging out TJ Hawkinson as the tight end 1 on the season. This is going to be a fantastic matchup. Both of these tight ends are going to be heavily utilized this week, and I'm definitely looking forward to watching who's going to come out on top top, especially if Detroit wins, they're taking home the NFC North. After Christian Kirk went down with an injury in their Week 13 game, Evan Ingram posted the tight end 3 and tight end 1 numbers in back-to-back weeks. The guy had over 20 targets in those 2 games. And then last week against Baltimore in a tougher matchup, unfortunately, he disappeared. Now, the good news for fantasy owners, if you made it through last week and you have Evan Ingram, he's getting a much better matchup against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is currently allowing the 5th most fantasy points to the tight end position. The Jags are going to be without Christian Kirk, and they're probably going to be without Zay Jones. That's going to give a nice target share to Evan Ingram this week and probably gives him one of the safest floors of any tight end that you could play. Trey McBride has found himself as a top 7 tight end 4 of the last 5 weeks. And now he gets an excellent matchup going up against the Chicago Bears that allow the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends. Trey McBride has been a top 7 tight end in 4 of his past 5 games. And now he's getting a matchup against the Chicago Bears, who allow the 3rd most fantasy points to the tight end position. When you add those things together, and the fact that Chicago has been playing a lot better as of recently and being more competitive, especially stopping the run on the ground, that leads to a great opportunity for another big week from Trey McBride. Even with having 8 targets in each of his last 3 games, it's only turned in 1 top 12 performance for Jake Ferguson. And Jake Ferguson has only been a top 12 tight end once in the last 5 weeks. That's really disheartening because he was starting to put together a little bit of a stretch coming out of the bye where we thought he was going to provide elite tight end numbers. And the fact that Dallas has been playing so well, it's crazy that he hasn't put together more fantasy points. Jake Ferguson, for me, in this matchup, going up against Miami, where Dallas is likely going to have to throw the ball quite a bit, I'm going to bank on him getting those 8 targets once again, but turning out a better fantasy viable performance than what we've seen as of recent, and potentially even finding the end zone this week as well. Yeah, we haven't seen Travis Kelce be able to hold the ceiling like we're used to this season, but that's okay. He's still one of the most heavily targeted tight ends in all of football, and I would expect him to bounce back this week after a poor performance in Week 15 and put together another top 12 performance for you, so easily he's in your lineup. Isaiah Likely was the tight end 4 in Week 15 and Week 16, and now on Monday Night Football, he's going to be going up against the San Francisco 49ers and George Kittle. Is he still a safe bet for me? Yes, he is, because of the amount that he is being utilized in the offense right now coming out of their bye week. Now, is his ceiling as high as some of these other guys? Absolutely not. And because of that, it will push him back towards the bottom 12 tight ends a little bit. He's still going to be ranked inside the top 12, but just keep in mind the top 4 performance we saw each of the last 2 weeks may not be there this week, especially if he cannot find the end zone against a tough San Francisco defense. But more than likely, Baltimore is going to have to throw the ball in this matchup, and Isaiah Likely could be targeted plenty to give him a safer floor. And for George Kittle, you absolutely know what you're getting. You're getting a guy that could be a top 3 tight end, or you could be getting a guy that finishes top 24. You just know that the volume is going to go up and down from time to time, that the yards might not always be there, but I'll tell you what, he's got better big play potential than anybody, so we're going to continue to start him, and you just know the risk factor going into it. All right, why don't we just go ahead and rule out a few guys right now before we move on to our Verge start. Some guys that we're questioning whether or not they can find it in our lineup this week. Let's just go ahead and get the guys that we don't care about out of the way. And for a majority of these guys, it makes a lot of sense why you're not going to play them. Yeah, Tyler Higbee had a huge game a few weeks ago for some of you, but he's barely found himself inside the top 20 tight ends a majority of the season. And because of that, it's really hard to even try to rely on him, especially on Thursday Night Football. At this point, I'm basically done with Kyle Pitts as it is. He's going to have that one game like every 10 games where it kind of sucks you in and you feel like maybe there's going to be a breakthrough, and then he just breaks your heart after that. So for Kyle Pitts, there's way too many tight ends right now that have a really nice ceiling to risk it on a guy like Kyle Pitts, who has a terrible floor every single week and his ceiling still isn't that good. Logan Thomas has posted some okay floors this season, but this week he's really just a casualty to kind of being lost in the other options that we have, because a lot of the other options not only have a better ceiling than him, but also a better floor. And yeah, Michael Mayer may have scored a touchdown last week, but let me ask you all honestly, and you can't laugh when you answer this. Are you really thinking about starting him in week 16? All right, now we've got the list of fringe guys, the Verge starters that you would like to possibly put in your lineup, and they could help you this week. But there's some reasoning, there's some risk, there's something involved that just kind of says, are they really the safest start? We need to analyze this a little bit further. And realistically, the guy that best defines this section of the video is Taysom Hill himself. The guy's been a top 12 tight end once over the last 4 games, and people are still wanting to consistently put him in their lineup because they think that the floor is safe every single week, and it's not. Does he have a great ceiling? Absolutely. He always is going to have a crappy floor, though. The Muth, Pat Freiermuth, has a great matchup against Cincinnati. Cincinnati allowing the second most fantasy points to the tight end position. But if you missed it, Mason Rudolph is going to be the starter this week for Pittsburgh. And if I wasn't trusting Mitch Trubisky, I don't know how I'm realistically trusting Mason Rudolph either. Pat Freiermuth has great touchdown potential this week. He could have an absolutely huge game. He also could get you 1 or 2 fantasy points, and you're kicking yourself in the butt because you rolled with him instead of somebody else. Pat Freiermuth has a ton of ceiling this week, but there are going to be some much safer floors that I would rather go with over him. Dalton Kincaid and Gerald Everett both have decent opportunities. Both of them could find themselves being utilized in this game. But over the past couple of weeks here, we're just not seeing the type of performances that we would like to. Dalton Kincaid is seeing a little bit of a downward trend now that Dawson Knox is back. And the targets still kind of remain there, but he's not getting the performances that we really would have wanted. When does that end up coming back? Plus, I do think Buffalo is going to run the crap out of the ball this week with James Cook, which could lead to just a few less targets than what we would like for Dalton Kincaid. And Gerald Everett, they're going to be playing with a backup quarterback, obviously. Maybe no Keenan Allen, and we're missing other guys, and everyone in the world seems to be banged up. But what's the offense going to look like this week with new personnel kind of trying to lead the charge? Tucker Kraft has been playing really well as of late, but Carolina does a pretty decent job of not only stopping the pass, but specifically stopping tight ends as well. He's going to be a little too touchdown dependent for me in this matchup, even though the touchdown opportunity would end up being there, especially given the injuries to the wide receivers right now and Jordan Love needing to just get rid of the ball maybe a little bit quicker than we would like. Tucker Kraft could kind of be that safety blanket this week. For me, Dalton Schultz could potentially end up moving to green, but it doesn't look like CJ Stroud is going to be good to go this week. And the matchup with Cleveland isn't going to make things much easier on him. There are some guys above him right now that I think just are way safer. If CJ Stroud were to somehow magically be able to play, then we would talk about it. But for now, I think I'm going to look elsewhere, knowing that Dalton Schultz could still have a decent day, but likely won't happen. I'm not entirely confident that Chigiooko deserves to even be in yellow. But at this point, we've seen him kind of see an uptick in usage over the last 4 weeks. And I think the biggest reason I continue to just keep him on our radar is because he's averaging like 13 yards per reception over the last 4 weeks as well. Will Levis has definitely unlocked some of that big play potential that we thought he had at the beginning of the year. Seattle's about middle of the road when it comes to stopping tight ends, so I think his floor is probably right around 6 fantasy points, but trying to find anything higher than that likely won't happen. Cade Otton gets an opportunity to face the defense giving up the 4th most fantasy points to the tight end position this year with Jacksonville, and he's got a great opportunity down the stretch here to put together some big games. But unfortunately, we just haven't seen him doing that this year. So if we play Cade Otton, we're keeping our fingers crossed and hoping that touchdown comes. But Baker Mayfield just doesn't look his direction, regardless of how often he's on the field. We know Cole Kmet and Justin Fields are typically on the same page, but we also know that DJ Moore is Justin Fields' go-to guy now, and he's going up against an Arizona team allowing the 4th fewest fantasy points to the tight end position. There's always an opportunity with Cole Kmet. There's always an opportunity to have a great game, and there's always an opportunity to just be plain awful. Every fiber in my body, everything, my head, my heart, my stomach, no, we'll stop there. Everything is telling me to play Hunter Henry this week. Each of the last 2 weeks, he has been the tight end 3. Since Bailey Zappe's taken over, he has 3 touchdowns. He's looked like a completely different tight end each of the last 2 weeks. And now he's getting a Denver Broncos defense that not only allows the most fantasy points on the season to the tight end position, but got absolutely lit up and kicked to the curb by Sam Laporta last week. But it's Hunter Henry. And it's the New England Patriots. And the consistency hasn't been there all season. Now, if he brings us all to the fantasy promised land this week, I think all can be forgiven. So if you're playing Hunter Henry, just be careful with it. The upside is absolutely there. But our souls could be crushed and ripped from our body by the end of the week as well. Darren Waller and Dallas Goedert each just come back to health. Right now, how healthy are each of these guys, and how much upside can we expect from either of them? I continue to look at Dallas Goedert as like an emergency option because I really felt like he was brought back to be more of a decoy. And his targets haven't been bad, and he's caught 4 passes for 40 receiving yards each of the last 2 weeks. So floor-wise, if we can keep him right there, he can end up giving you a pretty decent week. But the reason I have him in yellow is because I just don't know if the upside is there. And really the same thing goes for Darren Waller. How high is that upside going to be? Him and Tommy DeVito haven't really had an opportunity to work together. I'm sure he's going to see some targets, especially going up against Philadelphia in this secondary. And he's going to be kind of a fringe type tight end 1 for me. I think he's going to be just on the outside looking in because I believe his ceiling is a lot better than Dallas Goedert and some of the other tight ends you see here in yellow. But keep an eye on those rankings because I don't know how much I'm willing to trust that. Yo, Headliner Nation, there you have it. I just broke down every matchup at the tight end position for you in week 16. Now, once again, the changes that we are making here are not finalized. They're not set in stone. Think of this as a 2024 preview in terms of what you may see coming next year, because this offseason we have some awesome ideas in mind to enhance your viewing experience beyond anything that you've seen in fantasy football before. So leave us a comment down below with your thoughts on the changes, what you would like to see, what you saw that you liked, some things maybe you didn't like, and we'll take all of those into account as we sit down and talk about where we're going with this channel. But for now, Headliner Nation, I've got to get out of here. If I don't catch you again this week, have a great holiday season. Good luck to all of you. Hopefully I still see you though in the rankings video, and of course Saturday morning for our live stream. But for now, I'm gonna get out of here. Stay safe and healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.